Headlines of VTV News. Party and state leader receives newly accredited ambassadors. Students in flooded areas return to school. And later on in our world news, 226 dead in Myanmar floods after Typhoon YAGI hits.
Broadcasting from Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. VTV News starts right now.
Hello and welcome to VTV News, broadcast live to you from Hanoi. You're with me, Lina Pham, and here's the top news of the hour. Party General Secretary and State President Tô Lâm received ambassadors from China, Sri Lanka, Austria, and 14 other countries who presented their credentials. Congratulating the newly appointed Chinese ambassador to Vietnam, General Secretary and State President Tô Lâm affirmed that relations with China are among Vietnam's foreign policy priorities. He expressed confidence that the newly appointed ambassador would contribute to further strengthening the comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership and promoting the building of the Vietnam-China community of shared future. Receiving Sri Lankan ambassador Poshita Pereira, the top Vietnamese official expressed hope that the ambassador would contribute to strengthening the relationship between the two countries, especially as they approach the 55th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations next year. Congratulating Austrian Ambassador Philippe Agatonos on his appointment, General Secretary and State President Tô Lâm expressed his delight at the recent progress in cooperation in many areas. He hoped that the two sides would expand cooperation in new technology, cybersecurity, and green energy. At the presentation of credentials by 14 concurrent ambassadors, he affirmed that Vietnam would create favorable conditions for the ambassadors to fulfill their duties. This morning, Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính and National Assembly Chairman Trần Thanh Mẫn co-chaired the National Assembly Party Delegation Conference with the Government Party Personnel Committee on the 8th session of the 15th National Assembly. National Assembly Chairman Trần Thanh Mẫn highlighted that this is the session with the most content since the beginning of the 15th National Assembly term. Delegations will review 39 items, including 29 on legislative works and 10 groups on economic, social, and personnel matters. He stated that this conference aims to review and evaluate the necessary and sufficient conditions for draft laws and resolution expected to be submitted to the National Assembly. Due to the aftermath of Storm YAGI, the government faces challenges in budget management and meeting growth targets. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính noted that coordination between the National Assembly and the government is improving. He urged agencies on both sides to be proactive, work closely together, and strive for effectiveness. Typhoon YAGI and his subsequent floods have wreaked havoc on the provinces of Yên Bái, Cao Bằng, and Lào Cai, causing widespread damage. Numerous schools in these areas have endured severe destruction from landslides and flood waters. In the past week, schools have swiftly worked to recover, ensuring students' safe return to class.
1 week after the natural disaster, nearly 1,200 students from Nguyễn Thái Học Primary School in Yên Bái City have returned to class.
Our school is currently continuing recovery efforts from the storms and floods alongside regular teaching and learning activities.
As of September 16th, 518 out of 590 educational institutions in Cao Bằng province have reopened for students. However, one school in Ha Quảng district has not yet resumed classes due to floodwaters. Schools are continuing to implement measures to ensure safety and security
This year, due to heavy rainfall and storms, the landslides on that slope have become significantly more severe, posing a safety risk to students traveling to school. In response, the school has promptly coordinated efforts to ensure the safety of students as they return to class.
Students from 533 out of nearly 600 schools in Lào Cai have already returned to class. For schools in remote areas where conditions are not yet stable, Lào Cai plans to welcome students back within the next week.
My school was heavily flooded, and I had to stay home for over a week. Today, I'm so happy and excited to finally return to class.
Despite the many challenges, both teachers and students in areas affected by natural disasters remain determined to overcome their difficulties and continue their education.
Nearly 300 tons of relief goods are being transported from Bình Dương Station to storm-affected areas. This train holds special significance as it can travel directly to Lào Cai Station following the reopening of the Hanoi-Lào Cai railway line. 300 tons of goods, including rice, blankets, milk, and nutritious drinks, were sent to provinces heavily damaged by the storm, namely Lào Cai, Phú Thọ, and Yên Bái. The goods were also carefully packaged and divided equally to avoid damage during the transportation process. The train is expected to arrive at Lào Cai Station in about 4 days. To avoid supply chain disruptions and overcome the aftermath of Typhoon YAGI, food companies in Ho Chi Minh City have increased production and ensured an adequate supply of essential goods for people in disaster-stricken areas in northern provinces. These efforts aim to stabilize the market and support affected consumers.
This food company supplied more than 10,000 instant eggs in just 2 days to people in northern provinces who are suffering from natural disasters. This aid is considered suitable as people in disaster-hit areas can use it without the need for processing. The product can also be preserved for a long time. The company's inventory currently exceeds 100,000 instant eggs, with a production capacity of 30,000 eggs per shift.
We are committed to cutting profits. The company currently sells 7,000 fresh eggs a day. We will convert this quantity into processed products to supply the northern provinces.
More than 200 tons of vegetables and fruits of all kinds have also been added by Saigon Co-op to its price stabilization supermarket system. These batches will be sent to supermarkets in the northern province. They also increase the supply of other foods and essential items. To support people in disaster-hit areas, these items are discounted by 30 to 50%.
We're focused on distributing suitable items, as well as vacuum packing products for convenience to support disaster-hit areas.
The city is ramping up production to meet the sudden rise in demand for people in disaster-hit areas, especially dried and processed foods.
The production of dried and processed food has increased 3 to 4 times compared to normal, in addition to fresh food supplies. Many businesses report that their current inventory can sustain supply to northern provinces for 10 to 20 consecutive days.
According to a directive from the Ministry of Health, patients and victims affected by Storm YAGI are exempt from hospital fees and expenses. Additionally, hospitals and medical facilities in areas affected by Storm YAGI must be prepared to serve patients. The Department of Health in affected provinces and cities should provide immediate support when necessary. They should also direct the Center for Disease Control to coordinate with local authorities to ensure clean water, environmental sanitation, and disease prevention. Hospitals in unaffected areas need to be ready to offer support and remote medical examination and treatment. As northern provinces recover from recent devastating and natural disasters, this year's Mid-Autumn Festival takes on a different tone across many localities. Students and teachers throughout the country, including those in Da Nang City, are celebrating the occasion by preparing meaningful gifts for disaster-stricken areas.
Instead of the typical festive scene filled with gifts, toys, and the sound of lion drums, the schoolyard is filled with footage of flooding in many northern localities. This somber atmosphere prompted the school to transform their Mid-Autumn Festival celebration into a fundraising event aiming to support those affected by the floods.
I decided to sell lanterns because I hoped that the school would use the money to donate to the children in flood-hit areas. I really hope that my achievement can help them overcome their difficulties.
In other schools in Da Nang City, donation boxes for flood victims fill up a little more after each break. Though the individual contributions may be small, they carry great affection from teachers and students to those affected in northern provinces.
This morning, I saved a week's worth of breakfast and pocket money to donate at school. I want to spread love to my fellow countrymen and students affected by Typhoon YAGI in northern provinces.
The school's message is to love and share with people in difficult circumstances. All the money raised will be sent to the authorities and official organizations. In the near future, the school will gather additional learning equipment and books for localities in need.
In just 1 or 2 days, the heartfelt donation from Da Nang will reach the northern provinces, carrying hope to help people quickly overcome the pain and loss caused by natural disasters. These gestures not only embodies the Vietnamese tradition of mutual love, mutual assistance, but also serves as a valuable lesson in humanity, solidarity, and sharing that teachers are imparting to their students.
In Trường Sa Island District, Khánh Hòa Province, despite ongoing hardships, residents, officers, and soldiers strive to organize a warm Mid-Autumn Festival for the children. Trường Sa Island District has been experiencing rough seas and heavy rain these past few days, forcing the Mid-Autumn Festival feast indoors. Fresh fruit is scarce on the island, though coconuts can be grown locally. Grapefruits, apples, and persimmons were shipped in and have been preserved for a month now. Star lanterns from last year's festival were also stored. The soldiers made lanterns for the children by hand using materials available on the island. And before we move to the next part of VTV News, let's check out the foreign exchange rate. Coming up next, World Bank to buy carbon credits from rice industry. And textile and garment enterprises face challenges despite full order books. The World Bank has shown a strong commitment to cooperating with and supporting the Vietnamese government in addressing priorities for sustainable agricultural development. In particular, the World Bank has committed to buying carbon credits from the rice industry with a payment mechanism based on emission reduction results. Vietnam is striving to establish 1 million hectares of specialized rice cultivation to reduce emissions in the Mekong Delta by 2030. The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has set a target of reducing carbon emissions by 10 million tons per year for the entire rice industry. The World Bank has proposed a payment mechanism for carbon emission reduction based on results of the 1 million hectare rice project with a unit price of $10 per 1 carbon emission reduction credit. Ministries and sectors are discussing the possibility of building a separate payment mechanism for the 1 million hectare project. Currently, the Department of Forestry under the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development has received $51.5 million from the World Bank to pay for the purchase of forest carbon credits in Vietnam. This amount is being disbursed to nearly 70,000 beneficiaries and supporting the livelihoods of local communities under the benefit sharing plan. Aquaculture farmers in Tiên Yên District, Quảng Ninh Province are working diligently to resume production in the wake of Typhoon YAGI. Despite suffering severe damage from the storm a week ago, these farmers are gradually returning to their normal operations.
When Typhoon YAGI hit, Diệp Văn Bảo shrimp farming operation in Hai Lạc Common, Tiên Yên District had just started cultivating shrimp 20 days prior. Fortunately, due to proactive disaster prevention measures, the shrimp in Bảo pond, covering an area of 6.7 hectares, have continued to thrive.
Trước đó chúng ta phải chủ động tích trữ nước.
We have to store water in ponds to maintain a water supply, and electricity also plays an important role. We lost electricity for several days after the typhoon hit, so we prepared generators to maintain operation.
According to preliminary statistics from the district, Tiên Yên suffered damage to over 31,000 square meters of aquaculture roofing. The local authorities are actively supporting residents to quickly stabilize production.
Hiện nay chúng tôi đã cấp điện.
We have restored electricity and cleared traffic routes in all aquaculture farming areas, enabling farmers to resume production and support the local economic development this year.
Quảng Ning's aquaculture industry sustained heavy damage from the storm, and much work remains to restore aquaculture sector. However, the resumption of production by shrimp farmers in Tiên Yên is an encouraging sign in the typhoon's aftermath.
The influx of orders has boosted textile and garment enterprises, with many reporting full order books through early next year. However, rising costs such as increased port infrastructure fees, higher raw material prices, and logistics expenses continue to pose significant challenges. As a result, enterprises are actively seeking solutions to stabilize production amid these financial pressures.
A company specializing in manufacturing for European, American, and Japanese markets has secured orders through February 2025. Despite this, the cost of shipping goods to Europe has surged by 80% to 100% compared to last year.
The agreement will offer cost benefits to the company, the import market, and the shipping company. However, it requires us to stabilize our supply chain to meet weekly shipping targets. Failure to do so will result in penalties.
Additionally, the recent surge in petrol prices has led to a 6% increase in fabric costs. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, fabric prices have skyrocketed by 40%.
We rely on domestic supply sources, which saves time and is crucial for maintaining tight timelines in the textile and garment production process. Meeting these deadlines is essential for securing orders.
We need to develop a seamless supply chain, from spinning and weaving to dyeing and production, to leverage the benefits of our agreements, proactively source raw materials, and reduce reliance on import markets.
Businesses are likely to continue facing competitive pressures, including low unit prices and rising costs. To boost competitiveness, industry insiders are calling for mechanisms to develop the textile and garment support sector, along with improved financial support, more favorable interest rates, and better exchange rates for businesses.
According to the latest data from the General Department of Customs, Vietnam's export turnover of goods to Japan has surpassed $16 billion, marking a 4.8% increase from the same period last year. Japan, with a population of over 126 million, has substantial import and consumption demands for products such as fish and processed fish products, shrimp, eel, meat and meat products, soybeans, cereal products, fresh and processed vegetables, and coffee. Vietnam, known for its strengths in these areas, is well positioned to meet the needs of the Japanese market. The Cái Mép Thị Vải International Port is a deep-water port complex in Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu province. With a total length of more than 14 kilometers, it serves as a major international transshipment port, significantly reducing the transportation time of import and export goods between Vietnam and other countries. Cái Mép International Terminal, or CMIT, and Tân Cảng Cái Mép Thị Vải Terminal, or TCTT, are two adjacent terminals in the port complex. Each of them has a 600-meter-long berth, which can only receive a ship no longer than 370 meters. This limitation has reduced the operational efficiency of the port complex.
Cái Mép International Terminal CMIT and Tân Cảng Cái Mép Thị Vải Terminal CTTT usually accommodate only one large vessel with a length of 367 meters.
The large port complex has not operated at its full capacity as it cannot receive two large container ships at the same time.
In May, CMIT and TCTT announced cooperation to create a longer wharf scale with the aim of improving their service quality.
In addition to receiving mid-sized ships, now the port complex can receive more container ships per week. Its operational efficiency has been increased by more than 30 to 40%.
The cooperation of the two terminals is aimed at meeting the demand of large container ships worldwide, especially those with a carrying capacity of more than 200,000 in deadweight tonnage. The interconnected ports will help utilize the transport infrastructure as they can accommodate larger container ships.
Their combination establishes a common berth stretching 1,200 meters. Therefore, they can receive three container ships with a length of 360 to 400 meters simultaneously.
The cooperation between CMIT and TCTT is an important step towards forming a management mechanism and coordinating joint exploitation between all harbors in the Cái Mép Thị Vải area.
Coming up next in our world news, 226 dead in Myanmar floods after Typhoon YAGI hits. And advancing water security in Gulf nations. Myanmar officials have announced that the death toll from floods caused by Typhoon YAGI has risen to 226, with 77 others still missing. The typhoon has triggered floods and severely damaged dozens of towns across the country. Estimates show that at least 9 regions and states are suffering from the typhoon's aftermath. More than 430 shelters have been set up for flood victims. The disaster has damaged 2,000 houses, 110 buildings, and 1,000 schools. Additionally, about 260 hectares of crops have been submerged. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra has decided to establish a national center to monitor flood conditions and a new committee to coordinate flood response and recovery efforts. The Prime Minister also announced a meeting to set up these organizations and asked state agencies to attend to discuss how to better manage the situation. Flood response and recovery plans will be discussed at a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. Since August, floods have affected about 130,000 people in Thailand's northeast and parts of the Central Plains. Many provinces in these areas still face severe flooding, especially those along the Mekong River. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree yesterday to increase the personnel of the Russian armed forces to nearly 2.4 million, including 1.5 million military personnel. This decree will make the Russian armed forces the second largest army in the world. The new measure will take effect on December the 1st this year. The last increase in Russian armed forces personnel was in December 2023, when the total was raised to more than 2.3 million, including 1.3 million military personnel. With this latest decision, Russia will surpass India and the United States, which have armed forces of 1.44 million and 1.32 million respectively. As the result, the Russian armed forces will rise to second place globally, behind only China's People's Liberation Army in terms of military size. Freshwater sources are becoming increasingly scarce worldwide. In the Gulf region, wastewater has become a valuable resource that needs preservation. In some areas, authorities aim to transform their territories into wastewater-free zones. This means all used water will be treated and reused 2 or 3 times. Water loss would occur only through evaporation. VTV's reporter in the Gulf to report more.
Al Nassim labor camp in the Al Quwain Desert of the United Arab Emirates. Providing sufficient water for workers in the arid climate has always been a crucial challenge. Recently, this problem was solved by installing a wastewater treatment and reuse system directly within the camp. The once polluted wastewater now undergoes a treatment process, transforming it into clear, usable water.
Plant is 400 cubic meter per day, can reach to 2,500 to 4,000 people. And then the quality like crystal only pass the MBR, only the MBR produce. If we make one more RO, so can be potable water, can drink.
While wastewater treatment and reuse technology isn't new, its significance has grown considerably in recent years. New technologies have eliminated the need for chemical treatments, instead utilizing biological microfiltration membranes. These systems can be installed in compact spaces, and their costs are steadily declining.
The advancement being ultrafiltration. We are able to filter out particles, including even bacteria and some forms of viruses, which means your water, your treated water, can come out with 0 bacteria.
Because we don't have to use chemical, so the sludge we can reuse for fertilizer, for the farms, for the nursery, for the gardens. This is organic fertilizer without containing any heavy metals, without any other pollutions.
Wastewater reuse is transforming desert landscapes. Here, artificial oases with thriving green ecosystems are created entirely from treated wastewater sources.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. And that's it for this edition of VTV News. Thank you very much for watching. To rewatch our program, you can download VTVgo from App Store or Google Play, or tune in our YouTube channel at youtube.com/VTV4Go. Goodbye for now.